Welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict. Breaking news. We got some info, guys, we want to share with you. Couldn't wait. What's going on, Elizabeth?
There is a very cool picture now from China's Rover. There is some kind of monolith on the moon. And, we cover a lot of really heavy topics here, right? And, there are geopolitical ramifications to this, but partially, this is just cool.
It is indeed. Are we talking about extraterrestrial life that exists over there?
Yes.
That's an interesting topic. So, yeah. Well, indeed. As a matter of fact, just for me to check on the resource where we got the info, the Chinese Space Agency, as a matter of fact, they released the info about the Yutu 2 showing the curve or the cup-shaped object on the horizon, on the far side of the moon.
I have a picture if you guys would like to see it.
Sure.
All right. Here it is.
As the dark side of the moon. That makes me almost think of me standing here in front of a camera. One side of me is clear and the other is not.
It's true. We're gonna get you a light, David. But yes, you're just like the moon right now.
Well, good. But on a serious note, this is a very, very exciting. I tweeted on it earlier this morning. It's so exciting. The fact that, there is the other side of the moon that we don't know much. And China appears to be taking the initiative to just go ahead and put investments on that side.
Yes.
That's what I found it very interesting.
Well, and I also, speaking to that, David, what I think is very interesting is that it's also releasing images from the far side of the moon. The far side of the moon has sort of been secret, which is, what sort of started all these conversations about, is there something there? Is there something on the far side of the moon? Because it has been held in secrecy. But, whereas the US is very often afraid or not willing to say, hey, there's a weird thing here.
Yeah.
China seems to be willing to put it out there. This thing, we don't know what it is, and we're probably not going to get a closer look for another 2 to 3 months. So we won't know what it is, but it is very interesting. It's interestingly shaped. Yeah. It could be something.
Exactly.
And I'm very impressed with China.
The Chinese Space Agency mentioned the word mystery hut. Mystery hut. That's just a placeholder for now. Why? Because it needs to be determined as to what are we talking about here. It's still too early to be giving it a specific. There's right now a team of scientists working on it. China's been involved in that side. As a matter of fact, this Yutu 2 is part of a series of missions that China has been launching towards the dark side of the moon, and what's called the Chang. There was Chang 1, 2, 3, and 4. As a matter of fact, they're even working on Chang 5. That's how much involvement they are when it comes down to the dark side of the moon. And we're going to be talking, by the way, just to remind our viewers, on Friday live stream, this is the topic we're going to be talking about. So we got some info we would like to share with our viewers when we do the live stream over there. But this is very interesting, not only from a scientific perspective, but also you have to think about it in terms of competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There are those who are saying, oh, no. The US will always dominate. Yes, the US has a big leg when it comes down to space. Not anymore.
And I think that's maybe the biggest, outside of how absolutely cool this is. I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but this is an area of joy and passion for me. I love knowing what's going on in space. It's very cool for me. But outside of that, you're absolutely right. The US was the first to land on the moon,
Exactly.
But since then, we've seen here sort of the privatization of space exploration. We have Elon Musk is doing a lot there, but Jeff Bezos is doing stuff now in that realm too. But China seems to have pulled ahead in some really substantial ways. We just saw the hypersonic glider technology that, the US came out and said it's physically impossible. It's, according to physics, it's impossible. Well, clearly it's not. So I think that's a very important thing. When we're looking at space right now, who's really dominating that? And it's important to pay attention to, because it is the next frontier.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you have the two main factions, you got Russia and China on one end, the United States and its partners on the other. Mainly when they say partners, they're referring to the European Space Agency. Japan sometimes contributes, sometimes does not, but mainly the US. The question or the challenge now it's going to be is what will be allowed on the surface of the moon. Well, because there is no, as far as the terrestrial military doctrine is not applicable in space. So to say differently is if you get beyond 50 miles or 60 miles above the atmosphere per se, suddenly the rules are different. That's just the way it is. So, and the US is realizing now that China and Russia are joining efforts when it comes down to space, because I believe the China and Russia did agree to do the joint research station by 2025.
Right.
So that in itself is going to change the game. It's going to become now the idea of, as you mentioned earlier, the private sector also involved with the idea of blue origin for this the civilian side of it. But this, what we are talking about here, it has a different dimensions. It has the military aspects to it. Usually you won't hear any government talk. Well, when I say any government, I'm referring to the ones mainly now China, Russia, and the US. They won't talk about the military dimensions of it. But we shouldn't be denying the fact that the Pentagon has been very, very concerned with the latest Russia's test of its missile. That shut down the space satellites. Because actually, I did take a look at the statement from the U.S. Space Command, Lieutenant General Nina Armango, arguing that sort of what we're seeing right now with Russia is demonstrating not only as the advancement when it comes down to weaponry in space, but also the ability to destroy U.S. assets in space.
Yes. Well, and I do think the U.S. has the capability to destroy other people's assets also.
We do.
And yes.
We do. As a matter of fact, just to share this quickly, Elizabeth, without going into more detail here, we do have some exotic stuff.
I believe that very much.
That's all we can say for this one here, right? But we do have some stuff. So,
but just read between the lines on that one.
Yeah, maybe on a different platform we can talk a little bit more. However, just the idea of to understand this from the perspective of we used to hear during the Reagan years the space wars and all that. Yeah, that was the paving the way for the sort of your assets in space are very crucial.
Yes.
And this is where, China's discovery on something like this on the far side of the moon, or the dark side rather, which we never went there for whatever reason. And now all of a sudden.
Well, we never said we went there.
Yeah. Well, that is why the U.S. is not going to disclose certain aspects of it. But our argument is just now we're going to see some sort of who gets there first, set the rules.
Right.
That's personally my concern.
Well, and I think that's ultimately true, right? So, whoever gets there first to stick your pole in the ground. But if you don't continue to have a presence in that direction, there's not really anything other than, I guess, talks, which are not going stellar around the world right now for the most
No.
part.
No.
What I wish,
Mhm.
my deepest hope actually is that, we figure out a way to come together as one people of the world. And I think that's a lot of people's hope, is that we really figure out how to cooperate together. But because that isn't quite the case right now, I don't know that diplomacy in regards to the moon is necessarily going to be something that works, unfortunately. But it's true. The U.S. at least is not disclosing much of a presence or an interest in the moon. And we've talked about helium-3 before, and we've talked about helium-3 being a potential clean source of energy. I have my own. I think ethical issues with mining the moon. I think that it's a slippery slope, and it's always the question of, do we know how to stop or when to stop, or put the environment above profit, for example, or put the well-being of people above profit. And I think typically we've watched, especially for large corporations and governments, unfortunately, the answer to that is not that they put their people or the environment first. So I do have issues with going and taking resources from the moon, because I don't think that that's going to be done responsibly based on where humanity is right now. But I do see that it's a possibility to really explore who and what we are in this universe. I think it's naive in certain ways to think that in the vastness of existence that we're alone.
I will even use the term naive, Elizabeth. I'll go for as far as arrogance, for us to be thinking we are the only intelligent beings on this universe. So
I would absolutely agree with that.
So I want just to go back to your point about diplomacy here. And I am not usually, I'm a positive guy, but when I call it for what it is, I do not see that happening when it comes down to space, because there are a lot of dimensions when it comes down to space. I'll give you guys, just to give you to our viewers, to share with them one example. And the example is, I had a chance to read some of the declassified papers from the Pentagon regarding the what we used to call UFOs. They don't call them UFOs anymore. They unidentified flying objects. They call them now UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. And one of those aspects of it is that the idea of now that there is some technology out there that really defies the laws of physics, challenges anything we could even imagine. You take, for example, with this UAPs, I can just mention 5 key points. And if you allow me to share this here. You think, for example, the footage that was released recently, and about a year and a half ago, when that Navy pilot saw this moving fast object, they didn't know. Well, that object can drop from about 80,000 feet in no time. Before you blink your eyes, it will be down. And before you blink your eyes again, it'll be up, Well, those they share 1-5 identical or 1-5 characteristics you cannot find here on Earth. One of them is the instantaneous acceleration. Number 2 is the hypersonic velocity of this. Number 3 is the low observability. Number 4 is the transmedium travel. What I mean by that is their ability for these objects, those UAPs, to operate in multiple environments and domains.
Right.
And the 5th is the anti-gravity, which is the hallmark of this anti-propulsion stuff, which means basically is the ability to fly with no wings, control surfaces, no obvious signs of propulsion, and sometimes even no cockpits. So if you are to think, just take a step back and think about this, and you say to yourself, can we be the only entities in this universe?
I think that's extremely unlikely. And David, I think what you're bringing up is so important, because even if it isn't, let's say it's not extraterrestrials or whatever it is, so let's say it's not aliens, let's say that this technology, either the US has it or other countries have it, and it's not being disclosed. So,
Hmm.
even if that's the option, even if the truth of it is that some of these belong to our governments,
Hmm.
that's a very important thing for, I think, people to know, that technology has gotten to that point that we have these things, that we have UAPs, crafts, we have these things that go far beyond what we think is possible. And I think partially that's how we expand the minds of people, is by understanding just how much is out there and just how much is possible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said earlier, just to the extent of what I can share is that we
Mhm.
do have some exotic stuff. We do have some capabilities that I don't know when it will be brought to bear. Should the circumstances call for that? That's like to the end of what we can. We're gonna be, by the way, just for our viewers, we're gonna be talking about this on Friday for live stream, just to highlight a few things. But once again, just to go back to the heart of the matter here, it just
Mhm.
now you're gonna be seeing this competition between the United States on one end and
Yeah.
Russia and China on the other, especially when both Russia and China decided to join their capabilities when it comes down to space, and with China moving forward with its own space station that doesn't have to depend on the US anymore. So you can just see where this is gonna lead to. And I am a believer, as a student of history and also of when it comes down to international relations, whoever dominates space will dominate the world.
I absolutely agree with that. And
Absolutely.
I think that we have, I think the real questions are, what is the intention with space?
Exactly. Exactly.
Is, and it's probably a multitude. It's probably, like you talked about, militarily, you know,
Hmm.
when we're looking at the hypersonic glider
Hmm.
that came out, that China has, they can get anywhere extremely quickly, and it's very challenging to detect them. And that's why it was such a big deal. So there's
Exactly.
clearly a military component, and I think there's also a resource component to it. I think there's
Exactly. Yeah.
sources that are on the moon that I think are profitable. And like I said, I have very mixed feelings about both of those things.
Yeah.
But it's always ask the question of why. Why is space so important?
Exactly. And that becomes the question also of are other civilizations out there concerned
Mhm.
for our well-being? Could this explain why, for
They should
example,
be.
yeah, well, rightly
They
so.
should be.
You're right. Could it be that, for example, if you are to go back to the after the United States tested its first nuclear bomb, could it be
Mhm.
that that's why some of the nuke sites on the U.S. soil were shut down because there was concern from some other entities outside? Possibly, possibly not. It just the bottom line to it is when we start to think about space, we shouldn't have this mindset of we are so intelligent, we are so smart, we are, because it will be very arrogant of us to think that we are the only entity that exists in this vast universe.
Absolutely. And honestly, humanity has some very serious problems that we're facing. And
Yeah.
I hope, I don't know. None of us really knows, but I hope that somebody else out there is looking out for us,
Let's
because
hope. Yeah.
we as humans, we need to step up. But man, I hope there's something out there watching over us.
And
I really
it is
do.
maybe, maybe not. So, but the bottom line is the idea of this is now is going to change the game when it comes down to
Mhm.
space. So, and we have to be, as you mentioned earlier, we. When I say we, I'm referring to us humans on this
Mhm.
planet. We have to really think in terms of how to make sure we are all can coexist in a peaceful environment, because starting to have
Yeah.
that competition that extend to the military dimensions in space, it's not a good news for anybody.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that it's probably actually more dangerous, unfortunately, to be starting this space military race, because it takes weapons that can destroy all of us. And
Exactly.
having anybody have that much power, to me is a little confronting, and I hope that it's used responsibly.
Exactly. Well, this is why we wanted to share with our viewers this breaking about the sighting of this, shall we say, terrestrial hut or whatever you want to call it. So we wanted to share this info. And by the way, just to remind our viewers, we're gonna be doing a live stream on Friday on this topic, and we're gonna sort of expand and elaborate on it more. Anything else we need to share with our viewers, Elizabeth?
Yes,
before we
thank
go?
you, Stefan. Thank you for the super chats. We really appreciate them, guys. We appreciate them very, very much. David, can you see it?
Oh, no, I did not. My apologies. Let me see.
No, that's
Oh,
okay.
yes, yes, I see it. I see
Thank
it.
you very,
I
very much,
see it.
Stefan. We
Yeah,
really
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. And by the
And then,
way, on Friday we had a lot of super stickers from our viewers. I mean, I was very touched by the gesture. I was very, very touched by the gesture. So I want to personally say thank you on behalf of the entire team. It's really, it's the gesture that counts. He meant a lot to us. So we want you to know this. So speaking of our viewers, are we still planning on having Q&As on
yes.
Wednesday? Is that correct?
Yes. So we have a Q&A on Wednesday for all of you guys. On Fridays, we only end up being able to answer a couple of questions, and we wanted to give you guys more time than that. We wanted to give you guys more than that. So on Wednesday at 11 a.m., there's going to be a Q&A, and it's just a Q&A. Come ask your questions, chat with us, hang out with us. But it's Wednesday at 11, and then we have a members only one immediately after that.
For the Q&As, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And also, you're gonna be doing live tomorrow with Ross about some explanation of languages. Is that correct?
Yes. So we, like we've been talking about, Ross and I are, my father, Ross and I are going to start doing, we're going to start doing a breakdown of, politicians, of different speeches, of interviews, and analyzing the language that they use. So something that's happening right now is mass hypnosis in different ways by different politicians and business leaders and the mass media. And they're using hypnotic tactics. They're using hypnotic language. They're using something called neuro-linguistic programming. And so my father and I both have an extremely heavy background in this. And we want to be able to teach you guys exactly what to look for. We'll look at body language. We'll look at micro-expression. And so tomorrow, he and I are going to be doing a live stream where we're going to go over a piece of Morrison's, of him speaking from Australia.
Yeah, Morrison is the Prime Minister of Australia, just for those who do not know.
Oh, yes. For those who don't know, that's correct. Yeah. And so we're going to go over some of his speech and sort of teach you guys exactly what to listen to. So Ross and I will be doing that live stream at 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Exactly. I look forward to that because I'll be watching too. We wanna say thank you to Brian Wang here for his super sticker. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate it. So, and we hope that this information was, there's another one here. DW, yes. Thank you very much.
So
super sticker, we appreciate it. And I read the DW comments when he posts them. So it's very, very interesting. So we look forward to seeing you guys next time. And as always, stay informed. Till next time.